you are currently doing research into founders and flow. Can you tell us a little bit about what that research looks like, where you're doing it, and then to start us off, and we'll dive deeper into it, what the most surprising finding has been so far?
Yeah, so, I decided I wanted to explore this topic and I started doing self-directed research on my travels. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just wanted to do it. I'm not a big fan of entrepreneurship research, and I'm sure there are people at the university, if they hear this, they're going to scoff at me, but entrepreneurs learn by doing. They tend to learn from other entrepreneurs. If I was going to find anything of value, I wanted to find it a way to kind of intravenously get it into the bodies of entrepreneurs and not through academic literature that nobody tends to read. After being in the development world and creating so many strategies and plans that collected dust on the shelf, that was absolutely not appealing to me. So I was just planning on doing that. And then I randomly connected with a professor here at this university that I'm at now, WHU in Germany, which is a very small, very elite business school, 1,400 students, but a massive footprint. There have been 8 unicorn billion-dollar startups coming out of this university in the past 15 years. So it's a unique little place. But I met this professor. Turns out he was also a competitive kayaker. And so we immediately connected and we kind of discussed the idea of doing a PhD. And my initial thought was, I'm in my 40s. I'm a little old for this shit. I don't know if I really want to take that journey, but I've got family. My mom is in Germany. My sister's here. I thought it was a nice opportunity to be a little closer to home. So a couple years ago, I decided I would take this research topic and, bring it into the support of the academic environment where I can get people that can take a very practical minded entrepreneur and teach me some skills on structuring research a little more effectively. But I came in with this topic of, essentially how do entrepreneurs achieve flow, and what are the kind of antecedents and the correlates of flow in that entrepreneurial context? So I initially started the project a year ago I had about 35 entrepreneurs participating. I wanted to find an environment where they were all operating on the same conditions. There's so many challenges with studying entrepreneurs in the wild, right? Like they're all in such different contexts. They're all operating on such unique and different business models. They're at different stages. They're coming from different parts of the world. But I found an environment where they were all operating under a control. And that control is startup accelerator programs. If you're not familiar with startup accelerator programs, there are pretty famous ones around the world, like Y Combinator, like Techstars, that have spurned off some of the largest, most successful brands that we know today. The nice thing about these programs is they're fixed term, and all of the founders that are participating in it go through the same kind of regimented process. Techstars calls it the playbook. So they're all doing the same basic stuff every day, which provided a level of a control within the study. So I partnered with 2 of these programs in Munich and Berlin, recruited participants, and last year did the kind of classic flow study, which is self-reporting. Now, a lot of flow research originally was done with experience sampling. So people were getting pinged at random times throughout the day, and then they would have to answer a survey. That doesn't work with entrepreneurs. When they're focused on something, you got to leave them the hell alone. They're just not going to answer you, right? They've got way, way bigger fish to fry. So I had to find a way to alter that a little bit. So we did kind of a reflective daily diary at the end of their day where they would report. And we started going through this process, and about 3 weeks into the 14-week study, COVID lockdown hit. So all of them had to go home. Everything got shut down. They started working from their homes. We still kept collecting data. There was a big kind of perturbation and gap in the middle of it, but we kept collecting data throughout. But one of the things that I realized is that it was another problem that I didn't expect studying entrepreneurs in the wild, which is these are people that already consider themselves to be pretty high performers. They generally are pretty high performers. They have tremendous risk tolerance. They have the ability to persevere through complexity and generally manage stress pretty well. And they also want to present themselves in that light, because one of their next steps in growing their business is raising venture capital. And in order to raise venture capital, you kind of have to have this perception of, I mean, to put it bluntly, having your shit together, right? So I believe there was a lot of inherent bias I think they were all really good at gaming the study and really good at kind of guiding it in a way that made them look as good as possible, even though it was anonymized, even though that they knew nobody was going to attach them. They still had this inherent need to present themselves as operating at a very, very high level. So in a lot of ways, COVID was a great kind of random putting the brakes on the study, because it gave me time to take a step back and reflect. And I said, how do we kind of manage this bias? Started digging back into the literature, started talking to some tremendous flow researchers in Germany and around the world. And I identified through the literature that there are some physiological indicators and biomarkers of flow. They're not totally clear yet. We don't know if it's a cascade. We don't know if you need all of them or some of them, but we know that there are some that have pretty strong correlations to flow. So I started looking for technology that I would be able to do that with. And I bought a ton of different wearable devices, fitness trackers, and something that I've been doing for years is my own kind of N of 1 studies on myself with exercise, with diet, with different molecules, like anything I could do to kind of optimize my concentration, focus, and performance, and kind of ran myself during lockdown through a whole bunch of these tools that I could use to measure, as well as different interventions that I could kind of practice on myself. And then I talked with a lot of entrepreneurs that weren't participating in the study, and I realized that most of them at this point are aware of the concept of flow. Most of them have a bunch of flow hacks that they're already using. So I shifted the study and said, all right, we're going to put some wearable fitness trackers on them, be able to at least track their resting heart rate, their heart rate variability, respiratory rate, overall day strain and activity, sleep cycles, and then have them also do the flow short scale survey. So we would be able to see their self-reporting, but also take a look at the physiological underpinnings to see if they correlate. The key thing is that's only the baseline of the study. It's not actually a quantitative study, it's a qualitative study. Being an entrepreneur, like, we can crunch data all day and we might be able to see some trends and patterns in that data. But what I'm interested in is, what are people doing to actually affect change? What are these high performing people doing to mitigate the complexities and stresses of their environment to operate optimally? So as all this data is being collected, it's being dumped into a dashboard that they can play with. They can see their data in real time. And then we're going to do, at the end of the study, we're doing a deep dive to really understand what are the different things that they did along the way to optimize. And we're already seeing some pretty cool results. Some things that are expected, some things that are maybe a little bit less expected. And, I'm always hesitant to talk about too much of the data when we're, 18 into 85 days this time around. But yeah, we're seeing some cool things. I mean, one is, so the beginning of this accelerator program, they have 2 weeks of something called Mentor Madness. And each of the teams meet 8 mentors a day in this very, very intensive, like 20 minutes, you get grilled, move on to the next one. You do that for 2 weeks straight. After a week, it feels like your head's going to explode. After 2 weeks, like, you don't know what's up or down anymore, and you're getting conflicting feedback, and some people are telling you you're shit, and other people are telling you you're amazing, and you're trying to filter this all out. I saw HRVs slowly start to drop and then plummet. So almost the entire cohort of participants were just like, but there were a couple that managed to go on morning runs and do other things that were keeping it up a little bit better. They were having better sleep. They were having overall better biomarkers, and their flow responses were better as well. So there are already some clear, again, not surprising, but clear, that people that were like maintaining their physical health were having pretty good contributions to their mental health. More recently, we've seen people take weekends off because the program's starting to stabilize in a phase. And had someone the other day that went skiing and who was kind of scoring pretty low, took 2 days off and went skiing. And the past few days, just been crushing it and just been doing great. Again, 2 days after her little 2-day ski trip, but now it's going great. So there's some interesting things that are unfolding.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.